The story of Kevin and the tattoo group. I met Kevin in 2023. I was in a group for tattoo enthusiasts, and I myself have a lot of ink. I had a lot of friends who had tattoos as well, and Kevin messaged me saying he loved my profile picture and he found me super attractive. The photo he sent me as Kevin was of a really attractive man with lots of muscles and, yeah, tattoos, which I later found out was stolen from a model who has a verified IG and an OnlyFans page. At the time, I had no idea, and looking back, I wish I had checked his photos because an easy photo search brought me up the real guy's profile and information. The real man in the photo had thousands upon thousands of followers, and as I said, a verified page. I wasn't the wiser though, and Kevin said he was into tattoos and working out. I was 36, and he said he was 33, or so he told me. And actually, the real man in the pictures is 29, so he wasn't far off in age of who he pretended to be. Kevin said he lived in the UK, that he was born and raised in Manchester. He said he had a daughter named Emily who was just 5 years old, and I myself am a single mother who is raising a 7 year old daughter when I met him. I felt this connection as he told me his wife had died in a car accident. The father of my daughter had died a couple years ago as he was hit by a drunk driver. I had done some posts about this online in some public forums and publicly on my page. And at the time, I didn't realize this guy Kevin likely saw all those posts before approaching me, and he made a game plan to connect with me on that level. Kevin and I started chatting online and then moved to a chat app. We exchanged phone numbers and we text there. I live in Colorado, and with him being in the UK, I didn't think this would be anything more than us chatting online and maybe a good friendship because distance would be difficult to maintain a relationship, especially when we have young kids. We would text a lot, and he sent me tons of photos of who I thought was him. The fact he sent so many photos made me think he was the real deal. He would text me saying he was having a cup of coffee in the morning and then send me a picture of himself with a mug of coffee. This guy kept everything on point with regards to the photos he used. One night he told me he was having dinner with some friends and then sent me a photo of him with some other people eating dinner. So I fell for it. His events matched his photos. Kevin often would talk to me about his daughter and how she felt so lonely for a motherly figure. There were so many times he would say that his daughter asked about her mother, and it broke my heart. I told him if we ever meet, I bet our kids would get along so well. Kevin told me that he works for an international company that deals with gold mines and selling gold to wealthy clients, and his travels often take him across the globe. In fact, when we first started chatting, he said he had just gotten back from Ghana. He would show me photos of the gold and jewelry he was dealing with, and in fact, he told me that he also makes jewelry. To me, this was a sweet man who had all these abilities to do amazing things like make delicate and beautiful jewelry and rings, and he was a great single father. He would send me photo after photo of his so called jewelry creations, and at the end of things, I found out the photos he sent of the jewelry were stolen pictures from someone's Etsy website. So, yes, they were homemade jewelry pieces, but from someone else. He called me several times, and yes, he did have an accent. It wasn't British. When I questioned him about it, he said it was because he grew up in Norway and moved to the UK when he was 20 years old for school. I'd never spoken to someone from Norway, and I really didn't take the time to look into it and listen to Norwegian accents online to compare them. I just took his word as truth. He kept telling me that I was melting his heart, that when he had lost his wife, he had lost all hope. But I gave him hope, and in turn, he made me feel wanted and loved. He listened to me cry and get out my feelings that I didn't share after I had lost my love. This guy played on my emotions. He played on my feelings and my weaknesses. There was even a few times he put his daughter on the phone to say hello and ask if I was her new mother. I even let my daughter say hi to his daughter. There was nothing that was off limits with us connecting, including our kids. He asked me to be in a relationship with him, and I told him I needed some time to think this through. The distance, the cultural differences, everything was a factor. So finally, after a few days, I made the decision to enter into a relationship with him. As a side note, when I told him that I needed a few days to think it over, Kevin never left me alone. He kept asking me if I'd made a choice. He flooded my messenger with hearts, flowers, links to love songs, and pictures of who I thought was his daughter. And that really played on me heavily and made it a deciding factor. I wanted so much this ideal family, this handsome man, his cute daughter, and he checked all the boxes of being a great dad. He would tell me him and his daughter would go for ice cream, go to the park, and in my eyes, he was so perfect. And that's what did it. And that's what sealed the deal and started our relationship. We started this online long distance relationship, and Kevin asked me for my home address, as he wanted to mail me a special piece of jewelry he made just for me. I gave him my address, and about a week or so later, I received a padded envelope in the mail. The return address was to a fulfillment center. It was a gold necklace. He told me it was 24 karat gold and he made it from some gold that he had bought while he was in Ghana. And it was beautiful. And I was so afraid to wear it due to it being 24 karat gold and probably expensive and one of a kind. I did wear it sometimes and I did take some pictures of me wearing it and sent it to him. The first time Kevin asked me for something, it was something little. He said his debit card had been compromised and he was waiting for a new card to be mailed by his bank. He said that he needed to pay for a week of his daughter's daycare while he was working and he couldn't pay for it because of his debit card being canceled. He said he typically paid it once a month, but since the card was compromised, he asked me if I could help him out by paying a week of his daughter's daycare until he could get his card back, and then he would go ahead and pay me back once he was able to get his card in the mail. The daycare for a week was $350. I told him I could wire him the money as long as he paid it back because I knew how hard it is with daycare. And especially some places, if you miss a week or don't pay, they'll end your contract with the daycare center. My daughter was in a similar daycare once where you had to pay weekly and couldn't skip a week or payment. So I told Kevin, let me wire you the money and you can pick it up. But he told me that because it can be difficult to pick up money in the UK, he said something about security features due to all the foreigners who commit scams and fraud in the UK. They have a waiting period to pick up money, and he needed it right away. He asked me to buy a prepaid Visa Gold card and then load it and send him the information. So I did just that. I went to the store, loaded a gift card, and gave him the information off the card. I let Kevin know it was $350 for the amount that I loaded, and it cost me $6.95 for the card plus a $10 and some change activation fee for this particular card. So I gave him the total, and he told me he would pay me back twice as much. And I told him that's not necessary, just the amounts I told you. About a week went by, and Kevin said he finally received his card, but suddenly he was having to fly to Ghana to purchase more gold and check on the mine workers. I brought up the money he owed, and he said once he got to Ghana, he would go ahead and transfer the money to my bank account. He asked me for my routing number and account information, which I gave him. His daughter was going to stay with a nanny from the daycare center, and he'd be back in about 3 weeks. Kevin left for Ghana and texted me when he got there, but he said there's an issue with his phone and he needed a data card. And his bank card was still not working correctly because he forgot to alert his bank that he'd be traveling international, so they put a hold on his card. He asked me if I could buy him a $60 Simple Mobile prepaid card. I'd never heard of these, and he told me you can get them at any store, like a Dollar General. And he showed me a photo of what the card looks like. I bought him the card and gave it to him. He told me that he was going the next day to transfer the money he owed me, and he would include the $60 for the card that I had just bought him. I felt secure, like things were okay, even though he had asked me for help. Relationships are about helping each other, so to me it was normal to help him, as I'm sure at the time I thought he'd do the same for me. The next day, Kevin messaged me telling me that a woman named Laura, who was apparently his business bookkeeper, would be sending me the money into my bank account. Later that evening, my banking app on my phone alerted me to an $1,800 deposit from a woman whose name was Laura, and her bank was different than mine, so it was a transfer from one bank to another. I contacted Kevin, letting him know that this woman Laura sent too much money. Kevin said that she had made a mistake and she meant to send $800, and if I could go ahead and withdraw the $1,000, put it on a prepaid Visa card, and send him the information, he'll just take back the money. It was just a mistake. So I went ahead and took out the $1,000 and put it on a prepaid Visa and sent the card to him through chat. Kevin told me he was working on securing $1 million gold buying contract with his new mine that he was at, and he had never been there before. He said there was some complications, but things were moving forward. It was during this trip to Ghana that Kevin brought up marriage, and he said he had prayed for a woman like me and wanted to marry me. He sent me a picture of a beautiful diamond ring and said once his contract was secure and he secured the gold, he would fly to the UK and then fly out with his daughter to Colorado, where we planned on meeting. I was excited, and the reality was setting in that I'd meet this person I spoke to for so long. We talked every night for hours, texting, calling, and he would send pictures. He even sent me a few videos, and then we video chatted, which he was the man in the video which matched his pictures. His voice lagged slightly, but his voice matched the video, and the voice matched the same on the calls. I didn't learn till after that it was a dubbed over video. It was done so well, with the exception of a slight delay, and he wouldn't video chat for long periods, but we did video chat. At the time, and it came for us to meet, Kevin was even more romantic as the time closed in. He was loving. He did, though, share with me some problems he was having with the gold mine. He said he was so glad to be preparing to leave back to the UK, and the night before he was set to leave, he and I talked about meeting and all the things we would do. He was flying home. He was going to spend some time in the UK and then fly out to meet me in Colorado. He even gave me a photo of his flight ticket, which I later found out was fake. That morning, Kevin told me he loved me more than anything and then left for his flight. He was at the airport in Ghana and said he was waiting to check in. After that, I heard nothing from him for 2 whole days, and I got worried. I then received a phone call from a +233 country code, which is Ghana. A man calling, stating that he was with airport security, said Kevin had been held in security because of a passport issue, and upon inspecting his carry-on luggage was found with millions of unclaimed gold, and he was being held and will face a judge. I was in shock and asked to speak to Kevin, and they put him on the phone. He said he tried to hide the gold for us, that he planned on selling it for me and my daughter to have a better life, and now he's scared. He then told me he loved me, and the phone call stopped. I tried calling the number back, but no one answered, and then a few minutes later, another +233 country code number called me. A man who said his name was James was the head of security force for the Ghana police, and he said I needed to help Kevin or he would face life in jail. He said he would accept a bribe to let him go free. Part of the deal was if I gave him $10,000 and let him keep all the gold, he would make this all go away and he would give Kevin his passport back and we could forget about this whole thing. I told this guy, I don't have that kind of money, and he told me to find a way, otherwise Kevin would never see his daughter again. And his daughter, from his understanding, had already lost so much. He gave me 48 hours to come up with the money and gave me the name of a guy in Ghana to transfer the money via bank transfer to his account. Every few hours, this number would text me via SMS asking if I'd gotten the money, how much have I got so far, and Kevin will stay in a dirty, filthy prison. If I don't love him, I will ignore it. If I love him and his daughter, I'll make it happen and get the money. In this moment, everything felt real. Kevin felt real. We had video chatted. I'd spoken to his daughter. It was all real to me. He was so close to coming here to see me. I did something I shouldn't have, but I actually asked a really good friend of mine for a loan. Now, this guy who was gone as security told me to never tell anyone what the money was for, as I'd be sending a bribe and it wasn't legal. So I can't tell anyone what I was doing or what the money was for. My friend owns a successful car dealership with his family. I went to him telling him a lie, which I'm ashamed of, but I told him that my daughter wasn't well and we needed to get her a special medication and my insurance wasn't covering it and I'd exhausted all my options. He, of course, gladly loaned me the cash and told me to just pay him in payments. I felt this deep sense of shame and dread as my friend was tearing up, thinking about my daughter being sick. He actually was starting to cry. He gave me the money under this pretense. Once I obtained the $10,000, I deposited it into my account and then transferred the money over to the name I was told to. I let this person know the money was being sent and they asked for proof. I texted over the transfer details and he told me I made a good choice and he would release Kevin as soon as the money cleared the bank. I then received a phone call. It was a +44 number and it was Kevin's daughter. She called to thank me for saving her daddy, and then a woman got on the phone who had the same accent as Kevin, mind you, who said she was Miss Elizabeth, Kevin's daughter's nanny, and that Kevin had called his daughter and the nanny to let them know that I had saved the day. It was heartfelt and genuine to me. Kevin then called me crying, saying he was being released, and he thanked me for saving him. He then asked me if I could get him another phone card, the same kind as before, because his card had ran out and he needed to get home to fix his bank. I bought him a card and he was supposed to fly home, but he never messaged me that he got home. I called and his phone rang and rang, then one long beep. This kept going for a while and I started to panic more. I then received a call from yet another +233 country code number. It was a woman who sounded like the nanny I had spoken to. She was whispering and told me that Kevin was in jail again and to send another $10,000. I asked who this was. Is this a joke? Is she crazy? What's happening? The woman said, "No, no, no, not a joke. Send it now to the same person you sent the other 10,000. Do as I tell you," she said. I hung up on her and tried calling Kevin again. My calls went unanswered, as did my text. It was at that point I never heard from him again. His profile vanished from online and my messages on the app went unread. I wasn't sure what to think or do, and I ended up checking his number and it was a free voicemail number. I checked the +233 numbers that had called me and checked them online. One of the numbers from the so-called security guy from the airport led me to a profile on social media. It was a young guy from Ghana, looked to be early 20s. I did some digging onto his profile and found some photos of this guy holding tons of cash. I then found some videos of him with a woman speaking and dancing, and the voice was that of the nanny. I felt sick, but I realized this was either a boyfriend girlfriend or husband wife who were doing this scamming. Her voice was kind of high and squeaky in some of the videos, and it made me think she also pretended to be the child who spoke to my child, and I got physically sick. I took the necklace that he had given me to a jewelry store, the kind of place that buys gold coins, etc. The guy tested the gold and told me it was not real, that it was a yellow coated metal and nothing in it was gold. In fact, he was nice enough to tell me it's a costume jewelry and it can be purchased online for a few dollars. As I went home with all of this information, I started digging more into his profile and I found this man, and he was in a bunch of groups that were dedicated to fraud. He had photos flaunting wealth, and I came to the acceptance he was a romance scammer. I ended up searching for the woman who sent me the money, and I found a couple of women with that name online, and I messaged all of them. Two of them wrote back saying they don't know who or what I was talking about, and they had not sent any money to anyone. But another woman did respond, telling me she sent $1,800 to me, but said it was to pay for her boyfriend that she had met online for his military leave. When I sent her Kevin's pictures, she said no, that's not him, and she sent me the profile she was in a relationship with. It was a military profile with a picture I'd never seen before. I decided to message that profile and ask if he was Kevin and where my $10,000 was, and he blocked me right away. I knew I was on to something. The woman I spoke to said she had sent thousands upon thousands of dollars to various people across the U.S. for his military leave, processing fees, and more. I helped her to realize she's also being scammed, and she ended up blocking him. I filed a report online with the FBI cybercrime website, and nothing came of it other than an incident number. The woman I spoke to did the same, and we remained friends. It was like unraveling a puzzle, and everything was connected. This scammer flaunted his cash. He used his wife or girlfriend to call me and also pretend to be a child, and played on the emotions of me as well as my daughter. I ended up confessing to my friend what the money was for that I had borrowed, and we're no longer friends, but I continue to mail him payments monthly, and he keeps track of my payments so we can avoid going to court. But it's made me realize what lengths these people go to with their stories to scam people. They play on your weaknesses. They play on your emotions. Since this incident, I receive phone calls from tons of +233 country code numbers, but each time it's met with silence when I answer. And I've gotten a few text messages telling me that I've won big prizes or some other ridiculous stuff. I did message the real man in the photos, which I had found, and I let him know his photos are being used in scams, but he never responded to me. And I know it's not his fault, but still, who knows how many scammers are using this man's photos? His real social media profile is wide open with hundreds of photos and videos for anyone and everyone to use. Even some of the videos Kevin sent me were on this real man's profile on IG. It was a real lesson for me, and it also made me wake up to how terrible I was to borrow money under a false pretense that my child was sick. That made me know better than the scammer that I was trying to get money for. That's it. That's my story in a nutshell. And I'm sorry for what I did. We'd like to thank this lady for sharing her story. Oftentimes, scammers, they'll use the girlfriend, the wife, the sisters to pretend to be the child when they speak to you, or they'll pretend to be the nanny or whatever they have to pretend to be to try and get your cash. If you'd like to share your story, whether you lost money or not, you can find us scammingscammers@gmail.com or on FB Scamming Cyber Education. Our inbox is there as well. You can drop us your story, any screenshots, anything that helps us verify your story, and we will gladly narrate it into a video. Sometimes your story can help other people heal. It can help other people come forward to share their stories as well. Until next time, stay safe and remember, never send money to people you don't know that you've met online. Don't send gift cards, calling cards, phone cards, or prepaid cards. At the end of the day, if someone asks you for money, no matter what the reason is, if it feels wrong, block them. Stay safe.